Hey folks, welcome back. Thank you for continuing to hang out with us live on the AWS reInvent 2025 Expo floor. My name is Adrian San Miguel. I am a Principal Partner Solutions Architect working with tech partners and joined again by my favorite partner in crime,
This guy.
with the stuffed animal in front of him. Please introduce yourself.
Carrot. So this is Carrot.
That is Carrot.
This is Carrot. And I am Kyle Dickinson, your threat detection and incident response specialist. And we're joining you live at AWS reInvent 2025 here in Las Vegas.
Yep.
And the expo floor is blooming. The construction has happened. The doors have opened. The drinks are popping. And it is becoming an adventure. Excitement is amongst us and energy, and I am so excited. Speaking of energy, I'm electrified to be talking to some very groundbreaking organizations. And you can see we have a full desk with us, which means more information coming to you about awesome things. So let's work down the line. First of all, who are you? What do you do? What does your company do?
So, Lucas Glass. I am the Senior Vice President of Technology at a company, IQVIA.
Okay.
I like to say it's the largest company you never heard of. We run a large portion of the world's clinical trials.
Oh, wow.
And we're the largest healthcare data broker. So most of the data that flows through the life sciences industry is curated and managed and distributed through IQVIA.
So for those that are not familiar with a lot of like the healthcare life sciences terms, what does that exactly mean if you were to explain that at like the dinner table or to like a 5-year-old?
Yeah, all right. So if you want to use claims data or EHR data and do some sort of analysis or some sort of project or build some application with it, you need to source that data from somewhere.
Okay.
And we have all of those sort of brokerages that we've set up and we can aggregate all of those data assets for the various use cases that different engineers and developers want to build with or different data scientists want to use. And then in the clinical trial space, it's when you want to take a drug to market, you actually need to make sure your drug is tested in humans for, it can be quite a few years. And so we run a pretty significant portion of the clinical trials in the pharmaceutical industry.
That's awesome. And as somebody that's benefited from a very recently FDA-approved drug that went through the paces in Jorvex, I believe it's what it's called. Thank you, for all the things that you and your group does. And let's continue on with the intros.
Yeah, hi, I'm Lyndi Wu. I lead ecosystem business development for NVIDIA, specifically for our healthcare and life sciences group. Of course, yeah, go ahead.
NVIDIA, as we've all, what I've grown up to know and love, was graphics cards. And over the years, it's been incredible what NVIDIA has been doing with just beyond, the GPU, right? You mentioned you are working with healthcare and life sciences organizations. Tell us more about that. That is fascinating to me.
Yeah, well, the potential for artificial intelligence to transform healthcare is pretty spectacular. And specifically, even if you just look at the agentic use case, it's transformational. And it's that way for a couple of reasons. One is anytime there's a laborious process or where people might benefit from an automated, digital teammate or a digital assistant, there's potential for agentic AI to really transform those processes. And healthcare and life sciences has a lot of those processes. I mean, the things that you just heard from Lucas, it takes, 10 to 15 years, $1 to $2 billion for a new drug to come to market?
Yep. Oh, just easy pocket money.
Right. And it takes a village to do all of that safely and responsibly. And so our role as NVIDIA is to be the technology provider to that village. Anytime we can accelerate, wherever it's appropriate for us to accelerate and provide that GPU-accelerated software stack to enable the IQVIAs of this world to take time or cost out of that process, it accelerates the time it takes to develop new cures and get it to patients.
Yeah, think of in the United States how much of the healthcare system has become administrative tasks, right? My wife's a physician and she's, a huge portion of the hospital now is administrators. And that's a big area where all these agents and these systems that we can start building to really drive down. And because you don't want to take the doctors out, you don't want to take the human, the bedside relationship out. But how many administrators do you really want in a hospital system?
Yeah, and I want to dive more into this technological healthcare life sciences relationship. But we certainly have someone else at the end of the desk. Last but not least,
thank you.
Who do we have?
So my name's Matt Carr. I lead our healthcare and life sciences business for AWS in the US. And one of the things that you'll start to see is there's a lot of connectedness in the healthcare and life sciences space. So you have everything from companies that are developing drugs, to companies that are developing medical devices, to companies that are actually trying to figure out, how do you pay for this stuff? So the health insurers, then you have providers, companies that, and physicians that are actually giving us medical care. And then in between all of that are these health tech companies. You mentioned administrative. There is so much administrative back and forth and inefficiencies that have stood up industries. So things like revenue cycle management. That is, I gave a service, I need to get paid, going back and forth to figure that out. And so there's a lot of workflow and process that is just begging for agentic innovation.
Yeah, as somebody that's been kind of trapped in the health system over the years, and denial, appeal, research, medical board decision, blah, blah, blah. That was like a 2-year process.
Yeah.
And anywhere that you can potentially keep the human in the loop, incorporate some sort of automated agentic workflow, the customer benefits, the physicians benefit, they're not having to be tied up for all these things, and the level of Administrava just drops tremendously.
Now, so there is multiple partnerships going on. We got AWS, we have NVIDIA, we have IQVIA. Now, what is it that we're seeing with these relationships between AWS and NVIDIA and IQVIA to make, for lack of better terms, just the world a better place and to provide healthcare easier to those that would benefit from this?
Yeah, so I'll say the first thing is that I wish IQVIA were this, the world-beating best technology company on planet Earth, but that's not us, right? What we are is a fantastic, healthcare, life sciences. We understand how that world works, right? And we have access to this massive amount of data that I was talking about. And so as we start to figure out how we can transform and change the way clinical trials are done, change the way drugs are brought to patients, change the entire healthcare system, we needed help. We needed to reach out and say, we can't do this alone. And along came initially with the NVIDIA team, right? And the NVIDIA team was saying, wow, this is an exciting thing. Let's figure this out together. And so there's not one specific piece, but it's just been this ongoing relationship, them challenging us, them coming up with different solutions across the way, whether it's the AWS open search QVS kind of stuff. And then I had a great conversation with some of my AWS colleagues, and they're like, we want in on this. And so they've been starting to provide a very similar set of architectural support and engineering support to bring to us so that we can make this real, so that we can take the intelligence that we have and the subject matter expertise that we have and bring it to life in a real modern state-of-the-art technology.
And it's exactly, thank you for mentioning that. It's exactly what I mentioned to partners, technology partners, consulting, services. Do what you do best and work with others to enable them to do what they do best. It's very easy for somebody to go out and snag all these competencies or all these capabilities, but not be able to deliver on the core thing their customers need. Now, what I'm hearing are a lot of very specific terms that you join together to collaborate, solve a problem, and empower you to go out and do it and run your business without having to worry about the GPU infrastructure, without having to go and build a forest of clusters to go out and do your inference or whatever task that you need to run. And of course, and I'm sure you can speak to this, Matt, the breadth and depth of services to enable that so that they don't have to worry about falling on you and your teams. Now, can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at this, I'm going to use, for those of you that have been around AWS, I'm going to use a couple of AWS-isms. So one is working backwards, and the other is undifferentiated heavy lifting. When you think about what we are trying to solve, we are working backwards, and you talked about it. To bring a drug to market, it's 10 years, $2 billion, and it has a success rate of maybe 10%. That is just too long, too expensive, and too low of odds. And so, again, thinking around AWS terms, think big. That's a big problem we're looking to solve. But as Lucas was saying and as Lyndi was saying, we don't have all the capabilities to do that ourselves, but each of us bring very specific things. NVIDIA has the accelerators, we have the broad infrastructure and all of the capabilities and the global presence and global reach to be able to run distributed clinical trials all over the world. So I think there's an opportunity for all of us bringing these things together and bringing these capabilities so that we can solve these, quite frankly, big problems that have been around for years and years. And now the technology is there that allows us to really start to either drive out efficiencies and drive in productivity into the processes, or in some cases, completely reimagine them.
Yeah.
And that's... Oh, no, please, go ahead.
Well,
That's fantastic.
I was just going to build on that because what you said is spot on. I think the thing that's so exciting about us being here on stage together is that it really does illustrate this vision of having all of the technology pieces that you need come together so that we can deploy these agents that speed up, that take time and cost out of this process. So that it's easy, fast, it scales cost efficiently. You couldn't do that without bringing all of these pieces together. And that's what it's going to take to get, I mean, there's a reason it takes a couple $1 billion and all this time, right? And it's going to take something extraordinary to take that time and cost out of
and
that
if
process.
if we look at how much infrastructure is really required to be able to support what you're doing at IQVIA, you mentioned you're working with tons and tons of data and you're using tons and tons of processing power. I mean, you're not in the business of wanting to build warehouses and put a bunch of computers in it.
No.
You want to figure out other problems, not become, construction, HVAC, electrical, all those other types of experts to run your own hardware. The comparative advantage, that's the term I was thinking of. Use the comparative advantage of what you do best and then utilize the others of doing what they do best.
That's right. And so if you start to think about this, I don't know if you guys know foundational models, but that's a big area in healthcare that we're starting to push into. That's a good example of what you're talking about when there's the infrastructure, right? And so I don't want to be building massive amounts of GPU server warehouses, right? I'm in the healthcare business. I'm in the life sciences business. And then you go and you say, well, I don't want to spend that much money on AWS machines either. And so the NVIDIA team is actually, I know it's this sort of paradoxical thing about NVIDIA, but NVIDIA's job is to lower the cost of compute. And at every step of the way, they're working with me on how to spend less on the GPUs that I'm using with AWS, right?
And genuinely, it seems counterintuitive, but that's the whole point of working with a partner in that regard.
Yeah, it was one of the eye-opening moments. Remember, the DeepSeek came out?
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh my God. And we had a conversation with the NVIDIA leadership team, and like, what's your reaction to this? And they said, NVIDIA's reaction is this is great. Anything that brings down the cost of compute, we support. Our mission is to bring down the cost. And I was like, oh, that's such a simple concept. And so I can't figure out how to optimize all the LLM algorithms myself. They have fantastic engineers that only focus on that and can come in and support us on that front.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing that our TAMs do with our customers, is looking at, we want our customers to get the most value out of every single dollar that they spend with AWS. And so we're constantly looking for, how can we right size? How can we innovate with new services that bring down the cost of providing the service and providing the value?
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting. One of the things Lucas and I were talking about is, we do for IQVIA, providing the infrastructure that says we are the best in the world at providing that infrastructure. And no matter how good of a people that he may be able to hire, they're not going to be able to have as much visibility, as much exposure, and as much depth as we are in providing infrastructure. Well, IQVIA does the same thing for pharmaceutical companies. They're able to see across not just clinical trials for one or two companies, but clinical trials across all of them. And a lot of the data that they have, the value that they bring to the table, is that as you are developing a protocol for a clinical trial, it looks similar to another protocol that you've done for another company or in the past for another type of drug. being able to accelerate that and develop that protocol early and move that process through quicker is really how you start to shrink that 10-year time frame down to something that's much more manageable.
And for the uninitiated, a protocol is the experimental design of the clinical trial.
I was going to say, is that the hypothesis?
It's not IP. It's not TCP/IP. It's, yeah.
Now, and the kind of the unsung hero in what could really be described as a triumvirate is AWS and your partner teams and your relationships with service teams to help say, hey, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to accomplish and drive down to a lower cost. Or, hey, we want to start using this new hardware that just came out. Being able to have ready access to that to make you the best partner possible is really what the core job and remit of somebody like me is. It's my job to make sure you are successful, and in turn, to make sure the IQVIAs of the world are successful. Could you speak a little bit to that partnership?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've had a team that's been on IQVIA for 4 or 5 years now.
Wow.
With a level of consistency across all of the different functions, whether it's sales, solution architect, TAM. And like all of our account teams, they are very focused on what is it that IQVIA, their customer, is trying to accomplish. And then the benefit of having this incredibly broad portfolio is we don't start with the answer. We figure out what is it that we're trying to solve, and then we have this luxury of all of these different capabilities that we can bring to bear. And quite frankly, we may have 2 or 3 or 4 different ways to solve a problem, and there may be trade-offs from a cost perspective, a performance perspective. And nowadays, especially when you bring in all of our partners, whether it's from a marketplace or whether it's different LLMs that have different levels of accuracy and performance, there's a lot of different things that our teams put together to make sure that we have the right solution for the specific use case, because that's what's going to drive the uniqueness of the architectural solution.
Yeah, and just to build on that point, because I want to sing your praises as a partner for just a moment, right?
Please do, go ahead.
I mean, I think the thing that Lucas was talking about earlier, where it was like NVIDIA had this speed up. I mean, I think the thing that's really important for people to understand is it's definitely an and partnership, right? We've taken these models, we've GPU optimized them, we package them in these NIMs so that they're, enterprise ready, they're performant, and that's how you can justify scaling them out.
So we do have a rule on the show. If you say an acronym, you got to tell us what it means.
Oh, it's NVIDIA Inference Microservice. That's what a NIM is.
NVIDIA Inference Microservice,
yes.
NIM. Okay.
NIM. It's
Got
a
it.
containerized, optimized AI model
Okay.
that you can take anywhere. So it runs on our AWS service of choice. And the reason I just want to call this out as an and partnership is because IQVIA is able to take our GPU accelerated software stack encompassed in these NIMs and run it in their AWS environment of choice.
What services can a NIM integrate with?
EC2,
That's
EKS,
so fun to say NIM.
I know, it's so satisfying, right?
It's so satisfying, and yet we are learning in real time the secret of NIM.
Yeah.
Yep.
If anybody...
That's an old school reference. Nice pull.
We're dating ourselves because we recognize
You can call me Nicodemus because I don't forget.
Well, I'm just going to Google that.
It's pretty easy to leverage them on Bedrock too. That's one of the cleanest ways to get going with it pretty quick. Obviously, you can spin up EC2 and get some sort of Kubernetes kind of infrastructure set up if you want to deal with the overhead of that, but rarely engineers do.
No, you never do.
Now, I wish we could spend more time together, but unfortunately, we are coming to an end. Thank you so much for your time and hearing about the partnership about AWS, NVIDIA, and IQVIA. Those were a mouthful to say in all acronyms.
All acronyms.
Thank you so much. Hey, stay tuned because we're not leaving just yet. This is not a goodbye. It's a see you in a moment. Take care now. See you in a second.